We are live on Google Plus. Bad chat. Anyway, so studying messages with Objective C. So you can refer to it as calling. It's using methods too. Messages are methods in a way. It's really the same as any other language, but Objective C, or like in syntax, how you write it, how you think about it. But with Objective C, there's one big difference is versus runtime and compile time. I don't know if you found that in your studies. So what happens is because Objective C is based off C and they're trying to use object-oriented programming. So that, let's say you have a variable right here, right, of some class. So class. And by the way, I went and donated plasma on Saturday, and it took forever. It took like 4 hours. The whole time, all I did was read about this.
Nice. Not really.
I know. I got into like some deep level stuff. I probably don't even need more. So variable, and this is going to be referred to as a selector. Where's that receiver? Dang it, I forgot already. Do you remember?
That's the object. So the object and the message. So that's the sender. Yeah, that's the sender.
This is the sender.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'll just forget some of the names, and I'll just look it up real quick and remember all of them. So we have a variable right here, and you send it some sort of message. So I want this variable to dance, right? Dance. And you can pass in some parameter. It's just like thinking about Java, a variable, instead of having, it's basically the same as this. Dance, right?
Right.
Right? And we pass, I want you to dance for 45 seconds. Let me just put in 45. And you can keep adding these because that's how methods work in Objective C. We could have dance, style, So what's really happening is this right here. This indicates it's talking to there's an actual method. It's a C method, and it's like called, I can't remember, something weird, for send, something weird like that, right? And right here, sorry, I forgot if you can't understand what I'm writing. So this is the method name of the C method, and it's passing in this whole thing right here. And so it takes that, and what it does is it goes, okay, it has a huge, this is run at runtime, while every other language is compile time, which at compile, so Java, it makes it really fast because it's more structured and static, you can't really change it, while Objective-C is very dynamic. Right at runtime, it could change. And what really helped me understand messages too is this phrasing. So think of normal programming as active voice in English, and Objective-C is more like passive. So the object, this is active voice. The object did something, right? With that type of thinking, that mindset, you're just thinking about what is the object doing, right? With Objective-C, you have to reverse it and think more of something happened, something did something happened because of the object. So kind of reverse that. What would be passive voice? Something happened by the object, or something.
Something happened by the object.
Something was caused by the object. By the object. So with this, in Objective-C, we're just concerned about what's happening. We don't really care who does it. With most programming languages, you're like, okay, the object is doing this. We care about what object is doing this. In Objective-C, We just care about that it happens. We don't care who does it. We don't care who executes the method or the message. And this is probably the biggest thing I had to wrap my head around. That's the core principle in Objective-C. Because getting back to this, what happens is it's taking this and it goes and looks for it. And did you see this graph of how it went to a class, the super class? Oh, it's not there. Oh, it's not there. And it has at runtime like a list of all these methods. And it just searches through them. It's like, oh, that one works. So what was weird is I was trying to understand it. With some code, you can put conditions of which if something happens, it'll say, all right, forward. So this variable doesn't have to do this. Because it comes back to this right here. Something was caused by the object. We're just worried about something. So maybe this variable right here, this class, doesn't have this.
That method.
That method. It's very possible this class doesn't have that method at all. But it could still work on that variable.
So what happens?
So what happens? In the runtime, the C, what it does is it goes and finds this. So it'll check these different classes and it'll be like, nope, not there, not there, not there. Oh, we found it over here. Execute it. Oh, on here. All right. It's hard to explain. What did you find? It's really hard to explain.
It is hard to explain.
I can read it and then I can't explain it. You have any questions?
So that's what I've been learning too. And then I try to think, okay, what are the practical uses of it? So what really makes it beneficial? Because this is supposed to be something that separates Objective-C and the other languages that can do that.
I think this is the selector, and this is like the receiver, because this is what's receiving whatever happens here, if I remember right. And you can refer, oh yeah, so right here, this is receiver and sender, I think, because you pass in this part right here and this part right here. Anyway.
So
this helped me the most. Just remember, before you get into the deep stuff, just remember that. And then it's like, oh, okay. I just care that something happens. I don't care who did it.
So somebody danced for 45 seconds.
Yeah. But it might not have been Dan.
Then who? Then how? Where?
Well, hold on.
What happened?
It's weird. So Dan, oh, that's so hard to explain, huh?
Yeah.
He'll dance though.
Dan will?
Yeah. He will dance because you're calling that message for him to dance. But he's not the one who caused it. So if we were to write in a normal language, maybe Swift, normal language, you have Dan.dance, right?
Uh-huh.
Dan is a variable of a class that has the dance method.
Mm-hmm.
He inertly knows how to dance, right? Now what we're saying here is maybe not necessarily, he may not necessarily know how to dance, but we're going to make him dance. We're going to be a little puppet. It's kind of,
Okay.
does that?
And so it sounds like, from what I understand,
Yeah.
the benefits of it is when you have a certain class or you're trying to override a certain function to make it do something that it normally doesn't do.
Yeah, and that can happen at runtime, and they call it swizzling. And it's really complicated coding. Something that I learned, so what I learned is that most of the time, that won't ever happen. The majority of our code this semester is it's gonna you can
the dance
yeah
method.
you can think like that. That's the other thing I was trying to get to, is we don't have to get too deep into this. I think he just wants us to know what's going on. That this, even though Dan does have the dance method, it's still getting executed at runtime.
So
It's not getting executed the same way.
if dance isn't necessarily a method of whatever Dan's object is,
Mm-hmm.
but we can make Dan dance. What if the dance method requires specific data?
Member variables, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it'll throw a runtime exception.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So otherwise, it will just do whatever
Yeah.
it's supposed to do. So
Mhm.
so long as that method doesn't use any member variables,
Yeah.
then it'll run.
Yeah.
But if it does and that object does not have that variable, then it will be a runtime exception.
Mm-hmm. Unless I think maybe if you said member variables, so that means it can't be. It's not shared. It's
Yeah, so
private.
you wouldn't be able to access it.
Private.
It's private.
mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think it's with methods that are really open, and that can do that. If I remember right.
Interesting.
I guess where I got stuck too was the whole how can this be really useful? And it sounded like Brother Barney was saying, when you want an object to do something that it normally can't do
Mm-hmm.
for a specific case,
Yeah.
that's where that comes in.
It's a very
love
specific
to
case.
hear an example. Like, did he?
I
did he
found
share
I
an
found a
example?
crazy one online.
Was
and
it
I'm like-
crazy?
I'm like, I'm never gonna do this. They had to write within, I can't remember where they wrote. So, and if you're going to do that, you have to write within there. You have to make sure it gets forwarded to the right place. So you have to write some code called like forward reference, forward something, because this might not necessarily do it, and it'll forward it to somebody else. It'll be like, somebody else do it. Oh, well, he's gonna do it, like in a sense of it's gonna be enacted on him. He's not the one acting. So maybe there's so Stacy, right? Stacy in her class of woman. So that's a variable Stacy. Within woman, it has the dance method because women know how to dance. Naturally, right?
Naturally.
So it's gonna be like, oh, the men class doesn't have a dance. Well, I'm gonna go find Stacy, not woman. Oh, woman has that. So a woman's gonna make Dan dance.
So,
Isn't that how it
and
goes
from what,
anyway?
yeah, so like it sounds like if you don't want to create a whole nother class to do what you want it to do,
For that specific
this is where this comes in.
yeah.
So it's a way of not creating a whole different class. So let's say you have a ton of instances, but you only want one instance to do something special. This is where this comes in. Otherwise, you'd have to create a whole new class that does that what you're trying it to do.
Right.
Exactly
And-
how it works, I'm not quite sure, but I think the basic
And
concept.
apparently this makes Objective-C very dynamic, but at the process, I know I read some crazy stuff. At the processor level, this makes Objective-C a bit slower. Like just nanoseconds, slower than, let's say, Android or Java, those type of languages, because they have it all built in, and Dan can't get some other method from another class. He has to follow his strict rules. And
Dan can only dance if he knows how to dance.
yeah, yeah,
But it may be less code that you'd have to write.
yeah. And that's what makes it a bit quicker, but they say there's a lot of advantages to Objective-C with this. And that's why sometimes you see iOS and Mac having great performance versus Android, which is interesting. Even though Android's supposed to be faster because this ends up being faster. I don't know.
Isn't Java inherently a slower language anyway, though?
So I took a bunch of our time in explaining that. My bad.
That's okay.
So to conclude, I think pretty much we're just gonna think of messages as a method. I know we're probably gonna do a lot in Swift anyway. They refer to it as a message. It's just a method that's doing something.
Yeah.
So, bam. I hope it didn't get to be too confusing.
No.
That's as simple as
Help
I
me out.
that's as simple as I could get it. It's like,
I never thought about that passive thing.
yeah, I can think of grammar and English. Something happened. I don't know who did it. It's like in Spanish. I don't know. Do you know Spanish? There's reflexive. There's a lot of reflexive in Spanish. It's basically a lot of it in Spanish is just saying, well, it happened. I don't know who did it. I didn't do it, but you did do it. No, se puso allí. All right. Who's next? Travis?
Yeah, I'll go. First to demonstrate though, I'd like somebody to open up one of their projects that has some kind of user interface elements.
Ooh, my.
Okay. Got it.
What I used
anything.
for
Doesn't matter.
my interview.
Like even a UI alert.
As long as there's something on the storyboard.
Okay.
You got something?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I'm there.
Okay.
Erase my crazy writing.
It's not gonna work on yours.
Oh, dang it.
That's good then. So this is what Brother Barney told us to do, right? As soon as we get in, there's this big square
Yeah.
instead of normal iPhone. So it starts out at any. But he told us to change it to this, right?
Oh, I never did that.
So
That's why it
just
shows up
compile and
weird.
run. We'll find out. Yes.
Oh,
It does.
That's compiled. Yeah, sorry.
Okay. This is what happens. You try to rotate this and it works. What the heck? What are you doing? Why are you working? Did you start with this? Or did you go straight to this?
I'm pretty sure I started with that and I changed to this.
Okay. Well, let me show you one of mine. Let's see. Pretty much all. Just a second. Let's do core data.
What topic are you talking about?
User interface. Mobile user interface design. Okay, so I've got this, right?
Yeah.
And I got nothing. Absolutely nothing. Like there, I go landscape and I get nothing. Same thing when I go to my storyboard. Width any, height any, I have nothing. Regular width, compact height, nothing. The only thing that has anything is this. It's the only thing. And I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on. So I started looking into size classes a little bit and auto layout. And so the way to do it is you start with width any, height any, and you just throw everything that's going to be on any of your user interface in there. You just throw it all in there. Doesn't necessarily matter how it looks because you're going to change it. But when you throw it in here, then it appears no matter which size class you choose, which is why it's working on both of yours, because you started with
Any.
one and then changed to the other.
Oh, that might be the reason why it was bugging out that one time.
Could be. It was bugging me why I switched to landscape and I'm like, what the heck is going on? But anyway, yeah, so let me just do a quick demonstration. New project. What should I call this?
So you're saying you start out with any, just throw it in. When you switch to different modes, you can put one that'll show up in lens. Yeah, different size classes, you can put it in lens.
So let's call this size classes. Create. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, storyboard. Got nothing on there right now. Let's throw let's do something that's a little. Let's throw a button on there. Center it. So we got a button. It says button. So now I can get to that button from any of these size classes, but they all look different, right? So for landscape, I just want the button to be centered. That's all I care about. So I'm going to center the button here. I'm going to go to down here is where the different size classes are. So right now, I wonder if it automatically does that. Let me just try it. Didn't. Okay, so right here, installed. This is for the size classes, and just installed means it's any. So I'm going to create a new size class. When I'm in landscape, I want it to be centered. There we go. Just make sure that, okay, yep. So it's centered. So let's go to portrait. I'm going to have it be towards the top in portrait. Let me go over here, add a size class.
Okay. So you have to go add it, or else
Add
let's say
constraint.
if you don't do that and you change your to like landscape, will it end up being moved because you moved it in this view? Does that make sense? Unless
I
you
think so.
add that.
I think so. Like I said, I've been trying to figure this out. It's been bugging me on the one that has the blur view that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
No. Okay. Well, at bare minimum, it's on both of those.
Yeah, it wasn't on the
Wow.
screen.
I see what you're saying. Well, just the whole idea of that being able to do that, I haven't.
Yeah,
I didn't even know that.
I didn't even think about it.
So regular with height compact is for 5.5-inch iPhones in landscape. iPhones in landscape. Okay, there we go. So that's why. That was just for 5.5-inch iPhones in landscape. Let's try this. New size class. Add missing constraints. All right, let's try this again. Maybe that's why it's not working for me in my other one. That makes sense. Okay. There it is. See that?
So, oh, it happened? Oh, look at that.
So the reason that it wasn't working is because the constraint that I used, this is for all iPhones in landscape. This is for the iPhone 6 Plus
Oh.
in landscape. iPhone 6 Plus only, which makes sense because have you seen the Messages app in landscape on the iPhone? You just
Yeah,
have
I
more
see.
real estate.
I see that you can
It's got
move it.
You can put master detail flow. Do you know what that is? So you've got stuff on the left, and depending on what you select on the left, what is on the right changes.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what the iPhone 6 does in landscape and the Messages app. And it makes sense because you have that much more real estate. You can actually do stuff like that. So it makes sense that it has its own
In the Plus, it actually
size class.
the
whole thing
desktop
changed,
whatever
Yeah,
goes to landscape.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
they're really cool. It's actually kind of.
Um,
First, when I saw it, I was like, "There's no way I'd ever want that," and I'm like, "I kind of want that."
I'm getting a Plus.
Are you?
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah, I was like, I don't need anything that big, and then I saw what it did. I need something.
I want that.
I
So
want that.
those are the main size classes. When you get to these are for all iPhones and iPads in portrait and iPads in landscape as well. This is iPad in anything,
Mm-hmm.
and this is iPads in portrait or landscape as well.
Okay.
So those are the different size classes. If you're running it and it's not working, you might have done what I did and done for a more specific device than you're actually using. So just make sure that you use the right one. Now I'm going to go change what I've done on my other one, and it's going to work perfectly,
Cool.
probably. I guess we'll see, huh?
Well, this started the bug that I had last time, and it's not working.
Man.
So there you go. That's a bit of what I learned. Also, I've read through Apple's user interface guidelines. it's stuff that we kind of already know. That Brother Barney has talked about, like using depth to portray where you are in an application. Make sure things are crisp. That's one thing that the iPhone's huge on, is crisp looking interfaces.
Oh yeah,
Just
that's
sharp edges. Like if you pulled an element off of there, it could cut your finger because it's so sharp. That's just what the iPhone is. That's what it looks like. And the colors are like, have you ever noticed when you swipe right on an item to delete it, how bright red and just like vibrant that delete button is?
Yeah.
Super bright. And so that's just a little tidbit on Apple user interface guidance.
I've got to use the restroom really quick.
Well,
You get started.
okay. Then we're still recording.
Yes, I assume so.
Well, let's go ahead anyways. So Chad was, I'm doing a model view control.
Mm-hmm.
Chad was talking to me about it, and I didn't quite understand what he was saying, but now I think I get it.
Right.
The whole reason for model view control is it's a design concept to make your code more extensible, easier, so it's easier to change on the fly if you need to. Your objects tend to be more descriptive because you're using it with certain layers. So there's the model, there's the view, and the control. It's where all the data is. The view is basically, the view knows how to display the data, and the control is the middleman in between to make sure that process goes. So let me look this up real quick. Yeah. So what I also didn't understand at first is that you're actually going to have model objects, you're going to have view objects, you're going to have controller objects. And like with this done, like I said, it helps for, it helps with reusable code. It helps with making it more extensible. So if you need to add changes to it, it's very easy to do it. If you need to reuse, you don't have to write a lot of different code because you've already done it. Setup might take a little longer, but in the long run, you'll probably save a lot of time if you use this design pattern, basically. And it sounds like you guys have already seen examples of the model view control.
Oh,
model view
control.
I was actually telling Travis, I didn't quite understand what you were saying at first, but now that I've read about it, it makes so much more sense. We were talking about actually creating controller objects, model objects, and view objects. You actually want to create that. I didn't quite get that when you first said it. But yeah, and then that just makes it more extensible and easier to reuse code and a lot more organized.
I was gonna add, I found out from Brother Brian in my interview that you don't necessarily have to make a view class, like its own sub, because he said, he's like, your storyboard, that's the view. He's like, that is your view. And he says in your controller, whenever you put in your controller like IB action, IB outlet, that's referring to your view because it already helps make your view for you. The example I saw online is the guy just kind of tried to extend that by making another view class. But anyway, continue.
I see.
Sorry.
No,
Continue.
that makes sense.
So quick question, like all business logic, everything that actually runs the application is done in the controller, is that right?
All
All logic, like most of the code that you type to interact with the user and the user interacting with your application is in your controller.
I could agree with that statement.
I think it could also be, I thought it would mostly be in the model.
Because from what I thought,
Model
is that the
just
model is literally just
holds your data or gets your data, gets it from somewhere else. We don't care where it's coming from. The controller doesn't care what the model does, where it's coming from. It just wants to get that data and do whatever it wants with it. But I guess you can probably speculate on how much is in each one. It depends on your application, I would think.
Yeah, maybe. And I assumed like the controller was more like the main of a program.
Mhm.
It's where it says, okay, now just run this, do this in a certain way, but it's, okay, yeah, I see what you mean then. Yeah, maybe then it is all done in the controller.
But I could see, depending on your model,
Yeah.
like with my example, with my code, the random number, like to generate that method, is in the data model. That's making that happen. Like that's creating data, or
So maybe it's a little bit of both, or
Mhm.
just, yeah, like it depends on,
your application.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Because I could see, like, if you have an app where it has to generate a lot of new data or get it from somewhere else in order to make it work, you could have a lot in there, and your controllers is calling that so it can display it.
Mhm.
Or maybe it only has to get one, like you're just calling for one JSON file from an internet site, and that's all your code, and everything's in your controller manipulating it.
Yeah,
Does that make sense, Travis?
yeah, so yeah, it really just depends. So there could be most of the code, technically there could be a ton of code in the view, or there could be a ton of code in the model, or it could be in the controller. It just depends.
On your application. Because maybe you just have a very pretty picture app, and so you're worried a lot about the interface design of how it's popping it up, and all the controller does is like, oh, I just need to get pictures so I can pop them in the interface. And so your data is just getting pictures from somewhere. Your model, and then your controller is like, oh, I'm just grabbing that and I'm displaying it.
Whereas I think if you weren't to use this design, you would do it where you would have the view and the controller in one, and also sometimes the model in one, and that might be a little quicker doing it. But when your program gets really big and you need to make it more extensible, you need to like add features to it. Sometimes you might have to like completely redo the code, or you have to just rethink it. Whereas this separates everything, so it's just, when it comes to big programs, it's the way to go.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Okay, well, I'm good. I know you have to go here.
Yeah. Well, just in a few minutes. So all your guys' stuff is on GitHub?
I have not put mine on.
I'm
Okay.
gonna push mine really soon to GitHub.
I already said, just so it's recorded, my project got deleted somehow because I'm an idiot. And that ends our Google Hangout on Air. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next